project manager and the coordinator for SICM's statewide Indiana Invasives Initiative. She has been studying natural systems and rare, threatened, and endangered species for over 25 years. Dawn has worked as a biologist for our military and state governments, as well as for for-profit and not-for-profit entities. Her work and military lifestyle has led her coast to coast in the United States and to Europe. Dawn has been blessed to study and manage natural resources alongside many professionals and laymen across the United States. Dawn is going to tell us about the Indiana Plant Conservation Alliance Reintroduction Policy, why we have it, and how to use it. Let's welcome Dawn.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. How many of you like doing paperwork? I don't know why they gave me this topic, but we're going to talk about paperwork. That's part of science, right? And aren't we all absolutely, completely blessed to study rare plants? How many of you love getting down on your knees in a nice wetland, get your scope out, and you're like, yeah, baby, I got it. And what a blessing it is for us to be able to do that. And part of that is that we also track our work. It's important. And without that, you've heard from speakers already this morning, tracking work, saving and collecting and paperwork and data management. And so the reintroduction guidelines are part of that. And I know some people bristle at that because they're like, look, I am an expert and I know how to do this. And my heart is in it. But our hearts are definitely, everybody in this room is in it. It doesn't mean we can't make a mistake. And sometimes those mistakes can have very, very detrimental impacts. Therefore, and I'm not by myself, I am representing our Rare Plant Reintroduction Augmentation Committee. Can you guys raise your hand? There's a couple of you in the room. Deb and Yap, and we got Andy here and Alice and over here, Scott, so I'm not alone. Just want you guys to know that. So with the best of intentions and knowing that we're all quite blessed, there's a lot of words on here. And I don't expect you to read it all. What we're basically trying to do with these guidelines is to make sure that we know what we're doing, that we've done the background work, and that we've taken the time to study these plants before we do something that might cause greater harm than what we anticipated. We're not the only state that's done these guidelines. You know, we had at least, there were at least 8 or 12 different states that we studied. Some of them had 77-page documents. Some had a half. We're somewhere in between. We've got about 18 pages, 9 of that is an appendices and a reference, okay? So the other 9 is good information that really spells out why we're doing this and the steps then that need to be taken. So Scott put it well together here in this quote at the bottom. It says, working together across disciplines and unnatural employment boundaries can have incredibly positive impacts, not only for our rare plants, but also for the individuals, that's you, and the organizations that you're working for to protect these rare plants. And guys, how many of you can say that you know of or you have experienced yourself doing something you thought was a really good idea, and it turned out not so? So the last thing that we want to do is do that. So this policy, these guidelines, which are not policy, they are not law, they are not regulations. They're flexible guidelines. And we just want you to take a look at them, run through them, maybe test them up against a species that you're working on and see if they're going to work and what do we need to tweak. So we're just at the beginning of this. We've developed these things. And they are simply to make sure that we do the best that we can do with the most current information that we have. And we consider all ramifications, because what's the best thing we can do for any rare plant? Somebody yell it out. Protect it in place, right? It's protect the place. When we begin to move things around and do reintroductions, even sometimes augmentations, those impacts, we don't have all the answers. Does anybody in here have all the answers? Can you predict the weather the next day? We don't have all the answers when it comes to relationships or any of that. So these guidelines, they're simply flexible guidelines only. We ask that you take a look at them, read it, see if you can apply it to a project you're working on, and then give us some feedback. You know, Motter said in 1992 in his research that most reintroduction projects have unintentional negative consequences, and most of them fail. That's the truth. So good intentions, some of them didn't go through and ask all the questions maybe they should have. Some of them maybe they did and they still failed. So we want to make sure. This is a long process. I'm not going to lie. It's, you know, it's not 77 pages, but it's 9 pages that we want you to stop and address. And I'm not going to go through that today because we don't have time. You're going to ask those questions and address. Why is this listed rare? Number one, can I fix the situation and let that plant bloom, grow, do all of it needs to do right here where it should be? We've got to answer all of those questions first. So the guideline is a step-by-step process, and it will walk you through all of those things so that you can make sure that you have the most current information and you are asking the most pertinent questions to save that rare plant. Sometimes a rare plant is simply rare because it's rare. And it does not need to be moved around, even when we love it so much, right? So collaborating with others, it just simply broadens our view. It reveals a situation that we may be unaware of, and it will help us avoid the short-sightedness that every single one of us have. And I know sometimes, and I am talking about myself, and if you're on the Green Star Sedge team, it may seem like I am really not a people person. And I know, you know my job, and you're like, you liar. But I'm really not. I could work all by myself in the field with my little hands lens for the rest of my life. And I would be such a happy little camper. But I also know in the work that I do, if we're talking about rare plants, whether it's a rare species of any kind, if I'm not collaborating with somebody, I am missing the bigger picture, and I'm going to screw something up if I'm trying to save it. So as uncomfortable as it can be for some of us to step outside of that zone and start collaborating, and I'm not talking about with our peers right here. I'm talking about collaborating with the neighbors that don't want to see us walk on their property. I'll tell you a quick story. Scott and I were out, and I don't remember now what species we were looking for because of what happened at the front door. Scott's sitting in the car, and he sends me first. I'm like, look, you gotta come on with me here. I don't know if you remember this. We got up to this door, and Scott had kind of given me instructions. You know, this is what we say. We're from DNR, Dawn. You got to act like you're this part of an agency. So you go up there and you say, you know, here we are, and we're looking for this plant, which was historically found on your property. We've monitored it before. Would you like? Can we go look for it again? And she didn't have the door open. She had it partially open, and Scott's standing back here on the step looking, and I'm right there, and she said, I am sick, and I'm going to vomit all over you. Do you remember that? And I was like, what the? We're not going to be looking at that rare plant today. So that's a very uncomfortable situation, and not everybody's happy to see us. They think you're weird. You look at plants through a lens. You walk through the muck to go do that? Are you nuts? But we have to put ourselves in those uncomfortable situations. And this set of guidelines is asking you to do that. Step outside and start collaborating with folks that you wouldn't ordinarily do that, because you've got to cross the T's and dot the I's. We don't want to make a mistake with the rare plant that we have done in the past. We don't want to lose one more if we don't have to. So our desire then is just, it's a useful guideline. That's what we're asking, and that we're thinking and collaborating together, that we're putting it in front of a team of people who are compassionate about your work, who care about your work, and they're going to review it. They might have some suggestions for you. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, yeah, they got this. So please give us a chance to talk, to cross those boundaries, and to think. If you don't want to review it, maybe send us an email comment. You don't want us to know who you are because you don't want somebody to vomit on you. Then there's a comment box. I think it's right there on the table. And you can fill out the cards on your table. If I know every single one of you have picked up this document, you've read it in your spare time. So if you've read it and you want to write a comment, please give us some feedback. Put it in the comment box if you don't want us to know. If you don't care, we're here today, talk to us about it or send us an email. If you haven't looked at it, it's just basically 9 pages, or skip it all and because you know it and go right to the appendices and start going down the list. All right, it's there for you in the list form. Our Baxter Violi group, Big Viola, also took a look at it, and I'm going to quote you just a little bit because she said, hey, we think we're mirroring the guidelines and we think the guidelines are spot on and we're going to do that. So we looked at it. They haven't sent us their plan yet, but that's okay. She says she's got it. So there's a couple of people that had their eyes on it. So take a look at it. It's not that bad. Download the appendix, plug it into your rare plant work. And again, I know this is wordy, but it's important because we all do this. We've all got this big thing called pride, right? And I know what I'm doing, and I've been doing this for a long time. But there's no substitute for in situ ecosystem protection, combined with that surveys that we've been talking about, as well as review and management to the threats of the plant species. When we talk about reintroduction, augmentation, reintroduction, transplantation, introduction, outplanting are all considered types of reintroduction. We treat them the same in the document, so check it out. Existing habitat protection, well, you should only consider reintroduction if 2 conditions exist, and that's existing habitat protection is not feasible in appropriate locations, propagule source material funds, and long-term monitoring are available. Folks, if you're not doing long-term monitoring, why are you doing this? Right? So 2 conditions there, and then augmentation reintroduction plans that pertain to an individual state dedicated nature preserve must be, but you need to talk to the DNR and get your permits. And we've talked about that already today. So these things are all captured in there. If you want to know where it is, the policy is located on the Indiana Native Plant Society website. There it is, indiananativeplants.org. And you'll see our little tab. You can also use that lovely little square of all the black things. All right, scan it on your phone. Please check it out. Give us some feedback. We've asked for feedback. We know you're all busy, but check it out for us. We want a good document that we can all use. It stands on its own. It's good science, and we can say, hey, this is repeatable, and I'm using it, and I'm using what other people are using as well. All right, it's good science. Because wild places, that's where the extraordinary are ordinary. Let's keep it that way. That's what we're here for. Oh my God, do you guys have any questions? I'm not going to answer any, but it's going to be good. Ready for lunch? Yeah, I see some heading on. Paperwork, I know. Please check it out. Told me that was going to be really hard.
So Dawn did mention that there's the little transparent container in the back there. If you do have questions, you didn't feel comfortable asking them in front of the group, please do put your questions in there. And Dawn will be available at the, I don't have my agenda up here, but I think it's the last break. Is that during the networking and happy hour, you'll be available to answer questions if anybody wants to come and talk to you about that as well. All right. We're a little bit early. Are we too early for lunch at this point?
We're just need a couple minutes to get things. It's out there. Just give them a few minutes. They will come and dismiss us. Just wanted to point out the high top tables. Please use them if you want to gather and chat. They're here for you to use, whether the breaks or any other time. Just a couple minutes, they will dismiss it.
And we'll have until 1:30, I believe, from 12:15 to 1:30 for lunch, and then we'll gather back here again. So thanks, enjoy.
Hello, there I go. When we are dismissed for lunch, I'm talking about food. That always gets my students. We will go through those doors, go through the buffet that will be set up in the hallway, come back in here and eat. Again, they will dismiss me, but we're going to head to those doors when we do.